It always begins the same way. She looks at you, but not as you are. She sees you as the man she imagines you could become. You can feel it in her gaze, can't you? That faint glimmer. Hope, maybe. Or is it hunger? You think you're being seen, but you're not. You're being measured, assessed, scanned like a blank canvas waiting for her to paint her masterpiece. But here's the truth. The masterpiece was never really you. It never was. Carl Jung warned us, not with soft, comforting words, but with the sharp precision of a man who spent a lifetime peering into the psychological abyss of the human soul. His life's work was devoted to understanding the unconscious, the silent part of our mind that moves beneath awareness. And what he uncovered about women was unsettling. He found that women don't simply fall in love with men. They fall in love with an idea, an illusion, a projection, and most of them aren't even aware they're doing it. You think she's choosing you, but really she's choosing a version of you she's constructed in her imagination. A psychological puppet cast in a role for the movie she's been directing in her mind since childhood. And the moment you stop fitting the part, she doesn't rewrite the story. She just changes the actor. Jung called this phenomenon projection, specifically the animus, the inner masculine image that lives inside every woman. When the animus is immature or unchecked, it turns tyrannical. It becomes the invisible force behind women chasing dangerous men and rejecting good ones, arguing without logic, dominating without wisdom, moralizing without self-reflection. Jung didn't sugarcoat any of this. He called it what it is, a kind of spiritual possession, a state where the woman no longer acts from her own conscious self, but from the grip of this internal masculine fantasy. And men fall for it, again and again, because no one taught them how to see it. We confuse being desired with being known, being chosen with being understood. We believe her when she says, "You're different," not realizing we're just the latest actor in her psychological screenplay. And when the illusion cracks, when the mask falls, we're left stunned, confused, betrayed, humiliated, wondering what we did wrong. But we didn't do anything wrong. We just stopped being a convincing actor in someone else's play. Jung believed the only escape from this psychological theater lies in a journey he called individuation, the long, often brutal path of becoming whole within oneself. And here's the hard truth. Most men never begin that journey. We've been conditioned to chase validation, to seek approval, to let women define our worth. And as long as we do, we'll keep playing the same role, repeatedly replaced when the audience loses interest. Individuation isn't glamorous. It's raw, demanding, and painful. It asks you to face the parts of yourself you've hidden, the weak, the insecure, the broken. It requires that you stop blaming women for not seeing you and start the difficult work of seeing yourself. Because here's what Jung understood, what most men never will. You don't become a man by being chosen. You become a man by choosing yourself. Your worth isn't earned through her affection. It's claimed by standing alone, fully awake, fully accountable, fully alive. A man who has confronted his own unconscious can't be seduced by projection. He's no longer a puppet in someone else's fantasy. He becomes the author of his own reality. And perhaps the greatest tragedy of the modern man is not that he is rejected, but that Most men don't realize it, but they're constantly reshaping themselves into whatever form they believe will win acceptance. They call it compromise, they call it partnership, some even call it love. But Jung had a different term for it, self-betrayal. He warned that when men neglect their inner psychological growth, they become slaves to the projections cast by women, bending like soft clay into whatever shape is expected of them, often by women who don't even understand their own desires. In this process, men stop being men. They become masks, smiling, nodding, agreeing, performing, until eventually they forget who they were before they put the mask on. And women, oh, they sense it, far more than you could ever imagine. That thing you think will make her love you, your obedience, your reliability, your constant availability, becomes the very reason she starts to lose interest. Why? Because as Jung taught, the feminine instinct isn't drawn to comfort. It's drawn to mystery, to risk, to the man she can't fully predict or control. When you strip away your boundaries, when you become fully known without resistance or depth, you don't become more lovable. You become invisible, replaceable, disposable. Yet here's the paradox that traps most men. You fear loneliness more than you fear inauthenticity. You'd rather sacrifice your identity than risk losing her. You'd rather play a role than face the silence that comes from standing alone without applause. But Jung was clear. A man who refuses solitude can never be free. He wrote that individuation, the process of becoming whole, is not for the faint-hearted. It demands that you die before you die, that you burn away all the false selves you've created so something true can finally emerge from the ashes. Here's the part no one tells you. Individuation is lonely, terrifyingly lonely. Because as you walk that path, you start to see things others can't. You begin to recognize the roles people are playing, the lies they tell themselves just to feel safe. And when you try to share what you've seen, they don't thank you. They mock you, call you cold, arrogant, too serious. They say you're the problem, but you're not. You're the mirror, and people hate the mirror, especially when it reflects back something they don't want to confront. Jung understood this well. He spent his life studying people who were paralyzed by fear, afraid to face their own shadow, the rejected, repressed parts of themselves that they refuse to acknowledge. And he warned that women, especially, are often raised in cultures that reward them for avoiding that inner confrontation. They are told they are complete as they are, emotional, intuitive, pure. But Jung didn't buy into that illusion. He believed the greatest threat to a woman's growth was her unconscious animus, that internal masculine voice that speaks with false certainty, false authority, and hollow moral superiority. If a woman does not face and integrate this inner masculine force, she becomes a prisoner to it. She begins projecting it onto every man she encounters, blaming him for a war she refuses to fight within herself. And here you are, believing you're her savior, believing you'll be the exception, thinking that if you just love her hard enough, prove yourself loud enough, perform well enough, she'll finally see you, really see you. But that's not how projection works. Jung said it clearly. Projection is a thief. It steals truth and replaces it with illusion. Until both men and women wake up to that illusion, they are trapped, locked in a repeating tragedy, each blaming the other, never realizing they're dancing with shadows. And perhaps the cruelest twist of all, the woman who once looked at you as her hero will one day look at you as her enemy. Not because you changed, but because she will resent you, not because you hurt her, but because you failed to fulfill the fantasy she unknowingly cast onto you. And the most haunting part? She won't even realize she's doing it. Jung called this kind of psychological betrayal inevitable when neither person takes responsibility for their own inner world. You didn't lie to her, you didn't deceive her. You simply disappointed a role she invented in the shadows of her unconscious. You were never him. And that's why she turns cold, not because of your flaws, but because you couldn't live up to the myth she never told you she hired you to play. Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And nowhere is this more true than in romantic relationships. Men and women walk into them not as whole people, but as bundles of projections, carrying with them unlived fears, unmet needs, and wounds from childhood, still aching for attention. You call it love. Jung called it possession. And like a man under a spell, you keep stepping into the trap, telling yourself this time will be different. But it never is. Not because of bad luck, but because you've never asked the most terrifying question a man can ask himself. What if I'm the one responsible for this pattern? It's easier to blame women, to call them manipulative, shallow, deceptive, but Jung would look you dead in the eye and ask, And why did you let yourself be chosen by that woman in the first place? You see, the man who refuses to confront his own feminine inner world, his anima, is doomed to be enslaved by hers. You're not a victim. You're a volunteer. You chose to play the fool. You chose to be the actor in her private myth because facing your own emptiness, your own lack of wholeness, was far more terrifying than performing in someone else's illusion. And this, right here, is where most men stop listening, because this is where comfort ends and responsibility begins. Jung never offered quick fixes. He didn't sell you cheap advice or hand you 3 steps to alpha male dominance. What he offered was far more brutal: the lifelong task of self-confrontation, the discipline to sit alone with the silence of your own mind until your illusions start to shatter, until that desperate voice in your head that says you're nothing without her begins to die. And make no mistake, that voice will fight. It will beg. It will scream. It will tell you you need her, that no man can live without feminine validation. But Jung's work whispers something even more dangerous. The man who can stand without her, without applause, without approval, without being needed, is the man who is finally free. Free from projection. Free from performance. Free from the suffocating burden of living as someone else's idea of what a man should be. And when you reach that place, you don't become distant or cruel. You become real, grounded, fully alive in your own skin. And paradoxically, that's when women are drawn to you the most. Not because you need them, but because you don't. You'll smile. Not out of bitterness, but because you understand. You understand that she's on her own path now, that she must confront her animus, that she must awaken from her own dream. And you cannot do that work for her. You cannot rescue her from herself. The only thing you can do, the only thing worth doing, is what Jung did. Walk your own path with such fierce honesty that you become a living mirror, a reflection of truth for anyone brave enough to look. Most will turn away, but a few, a rare few, will thank you for it. And that, my friend, is but a few, a rare few will thank you for it. And that, my friend, is the difference between being loved for a role and being respected for the man you've become. There comes a moment, quiet, profound, when you finally realize you don't need to perform anymore. And when that moment arrives, you begin to notice something strange. People become uncomfortable around you. They can't explain it, but they feel it. The weight of your presence unsettles them, because you no longer fit into the tidy little boxes they used to feel safe. You've stopped playing the game. Jung warned that the individuated man, the man who has become whole within himself, is not welcomed by society. He is feared, misunderstood, labeled as cold, distant, arrogant. But the truth is far more dangerous than any of those labels. You've become untouchable, unbuyable, unmanipulable, because you see through the illusions now. And here's where it gets strangely funny. The very people who once craved your validation, your attention, your approval, they start to resent you for not needing theirs. Women, especially those still possessed by the fantasy of the perfect man, will accuse you of being emotionally unavailable. You're too much in your head, they'll say. Too analytical, too distant. But what they really mean is, they can no longer control you. You've stepped off the stage, you've stopped reading from their script, and without that script, they don't know how to relate to you. Because you're no longer a character, you've become a man. Jung once remarked, half joking, that the gods of old have become our modern diseases. What ancient cultures saw as divine possession, we now call neurosis. And no one is more spiritually sick than the man who chases validation. You think you're being romantic when you say, "I'd do anything for her," or "she's my everything." But Jung would shake his head, because what you call love is, in fact, a refusal to carry your own soul. It's easier to place your purpose, your meaning, your hope onto a woman, to make her the carrier of everything you're too afraid to hold yourself. But here's the brutal truth. She wasn't built for that. No woman, no matter how loving, can carry the soul of a man who refuses to carry himself. And when she realizes it, she will drop it. She must drop it. And when she does, you'll feel betrayed. You'll feel abandoned. But you shouldn't. You should thank her. Because in that collapse, when the illusion falls apart, you're finally face to face with the truth. That the work of becoming a man was never hers to do. It was always yours. And in that raw, naked moment of clarity, you're left with a choice. You can blame her. You can turn bitter. You can join the loud, angry chorus of men who mock and resent women. Men who swear them off in a cowardly attempt to avoid their own inner emptiness. Or you can do what Jung would demand of you. You can turn inward. You can begin the lonely, terrifying, and liberating work of becoming whole, without needing someone else to complete you. Because the woman you're searching for out there, she's a reflection of the part of yourself you've abandoned. And until you face that part, until you welcome her home, every relationship will be a performance. Every connection, a transaction. Every love, a lie. But when you do the work, when you integrate your own inner feminine, you become a man who no longer chases women. You don't run. You don't manipulate. You don't perform. You simply stand still, rooted in who you are. And from that stillness, something extraordinary begins to happen. You stop attracting women who want a character. You start attracting women who want the truth, and you'll know it when it happens. Because she won't ask you to perform, she won't fall in love with the fantasy of you. She'll stand before you raw and real, not as a goddess seeking worship, not as a dream demanding fulfillment, but as a human being who has chosen to walk her own path beside you. No masks, no projections, no games. And when you meet her, the real her, not the illusion, you'll feel the difference immediately. She won't flood you with dramatic declarations. She won't treat you like the missing piece of her puzzle. She won't speak in the language of completion because she isn't looking to be completed. She isn't looking to be saved. She's done the work. She's met her own shadow. She's confronted her own animus. She has burned through her own illusions. And that's exactly why she won't need you to perform. She won't ask you to carry her soul. She will stand there, whole within herself, looking you in the eye not as a man to be shaped, but as a man she is finally ready to meet. In that meeting, there is no desperation, no clinging, no performance, only truth. And that kind of truth Jung taught is the rarest and most dangerous form of love, the kind that asks for nothing but offers everything. Because it is not born of need, it is born of freedom. The freedom to choose, the freedom to walk away, the freedom to stand beside someone, not in illusion, but in clarity, without masks, without fear. But here's the hard truth. Most of you will never experience this, because most of you will quit before you get there. You'll settle for the performance, for the fantasy, for the fleeting thrill of being admired as someone you're not. You'll cling to being seen because facing who you really are still feels unbearable. But if you have the courage, the brutal, gut-wrenching courage, to keep walking, to keep standing alone, to keep stripping away every false layer you built to win approval, you will eventually arrive at something terrifyingly beautiful. You will arrive at yourself. And when you do, women will no longer be the source of your identity. They will no longer be the mirror you rely on to feel like a man. They will become something else entirely. Partners, not prizes. Mirrors, not mothers. Allies, not saviors. And you will love them, not because you need them, but because you choose to. From a place of strength, from a place of wholeness, from a place that knows without apology who you are. Carl Jung didn't leave you a map. He left you a warning that every man who refuses to confront himself will live as a slave to the projections of others, especially the projections of women. But he also left you a challenge to walk the path of individuation, to stop blaming women for the roles you willingly stepped into, to stop seeking your wholeness in someone else's eyes, to stop waiting to be chosen. Because the man who chooses himself fully, unapologetically, relentlessly, is the man who cannot be controlled by fantasy. He cannot be seduced by performance. He cannot be reduced to a character in someone else's script. He becomes the author of his own life. And if you've made it this far, if something in this message struck a chord deep inside, don't just scroll away. Don't let this become just another piece of content you consume and forget. Take a moment. Share this message with a brother who needs to hear the truth. Support this mission, not just for us, but for the next man who's still trapped in illusion, waiting to be set free. Help us wake the world up, one man at a time.